Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, even when they're doing you wrong, family has a pull on you like no other. And if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean that you're in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave White, and I'm the host of this podcast, where we sit down with a wide ranging variety of entertainment industry professionals. We pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more in a light and in a conversational fashion. And if you like how we do things around here, I will assume that you do, because you're listening. So please keep listening and subscribe. Hit that subscribe button, and gives you a 5-star rating in your podcast provider of choice. We're available pretty much everywhere, places like Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google, and plus we archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel. So if you can give us a like and subscribe there as well, we'd really appreciate it. Also, don't hesitate to check us out on social media. We're on the Facebook, the Twitter, the Instagram, the Letterboxd, TikTok, the Blue Sky, the Threads. Well, there's too many, but we're In the Seats for all sorts of fun updates. And finally, and I do dare say most importantly, please come by, pay us a visit over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca for all the latest and greatest in the world of film, television, basically the movie image at large. Because guess what? If we love to watch it and write about it and talk about it, we love it all that much more when you come by and read about it and listen about it. So please do us that ultimate kindness. Come on by and pay us a visit. On this episode, we're talking about a little bit of CamCon, which is in theaters now, played at TIFF, and now playing at a local listing near you. It is called Bloodlines from writer-director Gail Maurice, and it's the story of an estranged Metis mother and daughter who struggle to overcome their differences uh, when the world comes crashing down because an alluring woman enters their lives. This is really a grounded and fascinating and very well done love story set inside this community. It's a queer story, but it's a great story. It's one that I found myself really drawn to because again, this was not about Indian issues or anything like that. This was about people, and I think that's where the magic comes from writer director Gail Morris, who really managed to craft these very well defined, very distinct characters, and give them to us in a way that made us be immediately invested in them rather than sort of the situation or the town or the things they have to overcome. We care about them, which at the end of the day is such a key factor in making a movie that people are interested in. If the characters aren't good, then you're going to get lost. But Gail does some great work here with a fantastic cast, including a young actor named Dana Solomon and Tamara Podemsky and a few others, and she's in it as well as an actor. And as far as Canadian cinema goes, this is definitely up there. So it is in local theaters now. Check out Bloodlines from writer-director Gail Morris. But first, enjoy our conversation with writer-director Gail Morris, because between you and me, it's a pretty darn good one. All right, well, Gail, just to kick it off officially, thank you so much for the time today. And I guess just again, congratulations on the film. Obviously, I saw it back at TIFF, but I got to rewatch it again last night, and it still holds up. And just fantastic work. And thank you for being here to talk about this.
Yeah, thank you for asking me, and I really appreciate it.
What really stood out for me with this film is because obviously we've seen stories of a similar ilk before, especially when dealing with the Métis community and sort of understanding sort of things that have happened around it. To me, this felt so much more grounded in the characters rather than sort of the cultural trauma, if that makes any sense. Like, can you
Hmm.
walk me through sort of the inspiration and the origins on your end to tell this story?
Yeah, so I wanted to tell the story first, always about these two women that fall in love. Because being a queer woman, initially I wrote the part for me with Beatrice, and I thought, oh, this will be a really cool way for me to show, that I'm queer to the world. But it was written like over 25 years ago. So, and there was always a mother-daughter relationship as well. They were estranged, but it was very, very rough. It was on the city streets of Toronto. So as I got older, that story evolved, and I became not Beatrice, but Beatrice's mom, Leonor. And then also, instead of the gritty streets of Toronto, it takes place in, the north that is supposed to be, you know, representing my village of northern Saskatchewan because I wanted the cultural aspect to play more and have that story be seen by people.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, it comes through so beautifully. And I mean, I'm curious because obviously, you know, the dialect is not, dialects aren't necessarily very common. And I mean, I got to curious how much sort of extra work it adds for you, especially when you're sort of casting actors to be able to sort of work their way around sort of dialogue that they have no idea what they're saying. Like,
So that's the thing. So Melanie Bray, who's my casting director, she also plays jazz, like Beatrice's best friend.
oh,
So
okay.
so she did an amazing job. We wanted authentic representation. So the two leads are queer. And also the Granny Gang, we have because there's only five villages that speak my dialect of northern, well, my northern Michif. We had to go back to my village to do a casting call, and then we had people audition. So those three ladies that played the Granny Gang, they're all from my village, and because they're all non-actors, I thought it would work perfectly because they've known each other their entire lives. So they are fluent Michif speakers. I Dana is an Anishinaabe, so she had to learn her lines, which she did an incredible job doing. She basically had audio. I recorded the audio, and she had the Granny Gang to help her, with the pronunciation. But not only that, to be able to emote in a language that's not your own and that you don't really know what the words are. So she did an incredible job with that. And I jumped into the role of Leonore 2 weeks before shooting because we couldn't find anybody in my age range that, well, actually not only in my age range, but who could speak fluent Michif and can communicate with the Granny Gang. Because the Granny Gang had never acted before, I wasn't sure how much they would ad lib, and I needed the person to that acted with them to be able to understand what they were saying.
Well, the Granny Gang was absolutely fantastic, so you did a good job there. But
Thanks.
I mean, it's the old joke about, directors and 90% of your job being casting. I have to ask more about Dana because obviously she is absolutely a revelation in this. And I mean, she manages this sense of anger but fragility all at the same time. Can you talk to me a little bit about sort of narrowing in on trying to find someone who could carry this role? Because I mean, again, every frame she's in, she really commands the screen.
Yeah, when we did the audition process, we looked at Canada and the States. We brought people in from the States as well. Um, But at the end of the day, it was also a chemistry read with the person who would play Chani. And so I had them show their emotions in the audition. And so Dana was able to go there, and I knew that she would be able to give me the emotions that I needed to see on screen. Yeah, and authentically as well.
Well, and
Yeah.
I mean, again, that's the thing about this film that I think really manages to let it shine because there is nothing in this film that made me feel, and I mean, I say this strictly as sort of the white guy on the outside looking in. I've never felt sort of the guilt or the trauma. Like I felt that this was about these characters falling in love and sort of the situations around that and everything that happened. And I mean, to me, that made the cultural aspect of it kind of hit harder even more. How important is it for you, especially as you put stories together? And I mean, I think this is almost a thread with Rosie as well, because again,
Mhm.
it's so much about sort of figuring out who you are and figuring out your situation in life and sort of being proud of that, moving forward with it. How big is that for you as a theme, as a storyteller, to zero down on the people rather than sort of any sort of larger overarching archetypes?
Yeah, to me, when I watch a movie, if I fall in love with the characters, then I'm going to be invested, and I care about them. If I don't care about a character, I really don't care about the story. And also, I write from my heart, like I was saying, when I was writing this, I was crying. Like the scene with when Beatrice is at the clothesline with her mom, I was bawling my eyes out there,
Yeah.
and even when they're sitting in the car, I was crying. And people that aren't writers might not get it, and because like somebody walked into the room while I was crying, and they said, "What's going on?" I said, "This just happened," and to me, they're looking at me like I'm insane because it's just they're just characters, but they're not just characters. They're real people that I've created in my mind, right? So yeah, it's so important for me. To be able for the audiences to be able to like connect with the characters. Did I answer your question or did I
No, you
go?
did though, because I mean, it's one of those things where if the writer and the director doesn't believe in the characters, then we don't necessarily believe in the characters as an
Yeah,
audience. And I mean, I'm kind of curious where you got that from, because again, this is one of those things where it's hard to sort of exhibit naturally, to sort of really care about the people as opposed to the story. Most people tend to focus on the story. To
yeah.
me, watching Rosie end this, I was more invested in the people than I was necessarily the whole story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the thing is, so Beatrice and the Granny Gang, those they're interesting characters because the way I grew up as well, we were never I was never disciplined. We were always told I was always told a story in a way to be taught so that I was trusted as a little kid, like a 6-year-old, 7-year-old. I was trusted to be able to understand why the story was being told to me. So it allowed me to like start to have values and work that out in my mind, right? So that's what I wanted, the Granny Gang coming in and teaching Beatrice by taking her on these trips and telling her these stories until finally she's not getting it and they just say, look, you have to smarten up and deal with this shit. So and it's just again those characters, that's the way I was brought up. And it's just yeah representing that. And Josephine, the character, my mom, she was yeah like they're like the three, not muses, but they have their roles, like Monique is the one that makes you kind of laugh, and Josephine is the one that's more strict and stern, the boss, and Pimi, which means Sukau, the other granny, which means sugar in Michif, is more the follower, but the quiet one.
No, for sure, for sure. And I mean, I'm curious because I mean, obviously, storytelling is inherent to the culture. And I mean, filmmaking is obviously storytelling. And it does really feel like we're, with films like yours and other people's films, we've hit a really interesting inflection point where it's less about telling stories, like I said, of trauma and more about
Hmm.
sort of the people. And like
Yeah.
I said, to me, when I'm more invested in the person, I'm more invested in sort of the history of that person and of those people. How do you
Mm.
feel sort of Indigenous filmmaking has evolved, especially in the past few years?
I think we're all evolving in our own way. We're all so unique, like every human being on Earth. We're all so unique. We have our own stories. Like there's sci-fi. My next film is going to be like a dystopian. It's like we
Love
all
it.
have our
Love it.
own, yeah, we all have our own stories to tell in our unique way, VR, AR, gaming, whatever way we want to tell the stories, it's so exciting. And it's yeah, it's powerful. And also like I like telling stories where the topics are serious, but like you say, you never felt the trauma, and that's good. But at the same time, that there's issues in this film that I tackle and talk about, but it's in a way that's so just interconnected with what the whole story is about, which is
100%.
these
Yeah.
two women falling in love. And to me, like telling a story, like weaving serious topics with humor is so important to me, and I'll do that in all my films. Um, it's like we just had a screening in Saskatchewan for a pre-theatrical, and and I took it back home, so there was a lot of family and friends there, and they came up to me and said I was crying, and then I was laughing, and then you had me crying again, and but it's the way life is, even if our hearts are breaking, we can still cry, we can still laugh, you
No,
know?
100%. No,
Yeah,
it's important to have all that stuff in play. And I mean,
yeah.
it makes me think of, I mean, obviously, a few years ago, we lost Jeff Barnaby, obviously, fantastic filmmaker. But it does feel like the idea of subverting genre in Indigenous filmmaking is becoming more and more relevant.
Hmm.
Is that sort of is that a reasonable thing to say? Because again, it's one of those things where it feels like again, there's people will put, cultural ideas and films about, any sort of specific cultures in a box. But films like yours, films like Jeff, films that other people have made are managing to sort of expand that box and break out a little bit.
Hmm.
Does that feel right to you?
I hope so. But I mean, there's still a long way to go, I think, where people want to put us in that box, like Indigenous cinema.
Yeah,
They can't grasp that we can be someone else other than what they imagine in their minds,
right.
and it's going to take a long time, I think, to break that stereotype. In Europe, when I go to the film festivals, it's really hard over there to like try to sell your story as an Indigenous story because a lot of people just some of them just don't understand and aren't interested if it's not what they grew up believing, but they don't. That's why, like, I write, like, I'm gonna, write freaking kick-ass, Indigenous woman. That's why I started writing because I wasn't
Exactly.
being
Yeah.
represented on screen and anywhere. So I thought, fuck, I'm like a young kick-ass woman, strong, and no one can push me around. And I wanted to tell those roles, and my next film is going to be the same thing. Yeah,
No, I mean, I'm curious. This is sort of a variation of something I always like to ask because obviously Rosie was your first feature. This is the second. And I mean, there's always going to be sort of things that you learn along the way that you never expect to learn. Coming
yeah.
off the second one now, like, is there anything that you kind of learned about yourself as a filmmaker to sort of that you're gonna be able to apply to number three?
Yeah, I learned that I can actually say no to things, and I can actually I forget, like, that I'm the boss,
Yeah.
basically, right? I forget that. And so I'm learning that and more. And I learned that I had a really, like, Rosie was a difficult shoot because it was my first one. I learned so much on Bloodlines, but actually, Bloodlines was almost like going home every day. It was such a joy to shoot, and then it was like night and day from my first feature film because the budget was higher, but also I knew that I wanted a crew that where there was absolute respect on set, and there was no um I didn't want to. I didn't want people that were disrespectful and unkind. So that to me was also super important. And I learned that, that I can get that. Like, if in the crew that I hire, that's you know, something that I wanted. Yeah.
Well, and that's a way to be such a fantastic example too, because I mean, obviously, like you said, you're a kick-ass Indigenous woman. You're doing these things, but you've got someone like Tamara on set who you're working with, and then Dana, who I'm sure will be well on her way to being a kick-ass Indigenous woman on her own of her
Yeah.
own right as well. And I mean, just to put a bow on this, I mean, when you're making these films, I'm kind of curious because obviously this particular one obviously feels very personal. I mean, is there going to be part of it that will you'll always hold on to, or do you sort of in your filmmaker brain have to go, okay, this one's done, on to the next one?
There's always going to be something that I'm holding on to. And, I wish I could have put this in the and this in, and because there's a lot of scenes that we didn't add, we didn't include and stuff like this. So yeah, I think that happens with every director. Um, but I mean, there's always room to bring that aspect that won't let us go. We can bring that aspect into our next feature film and make sure that if it wasn't represented in this film or the last film, that I can make damn well sure that it's in the next film. It's like, so it's also you know, letting go and just letting the film live and breathe and see what it becomes. And because now I don't have control of it anymore,
Right.
it's up to the viewers to accept it and to love it or hate it, however they want. And I have to just allow myself to be free and to see it evolve. Yeah,
No, and I mean, and that's fair. And I mean, but I think what you've made here really has a chance to evolve into something beautiful because I mean, again, it goes down to the core of these characters and these people falling in love. And I mean, it's such a beautiful film. And I mean, obviously, just I've been a fan since the first one. And I mean, congrats
yeah.
on this. And I mean,
Thank you.
I look forward to talking to you, say TIFF 2027 or 2028 about some kick-ass dystopian sci-fi.
Yes. Yeah, and I just want to say too, like Steve Cousins was my cinematographer, and he was a great collaborator, and he's the one that the visuals you see. And
There's such warmth
also,
in the film. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. Yeah. And Dana Solomon, I just want to say as well, she just finished her first short. She's a
Oh wow.
dancer, so she just finished a short about a dance piece. So yeah, so I just wanted to have a little shout out to her as well.
Well, fantastic. But I mean, Gail,
Yeah.
again, congrats to you and the entire team who made Bloodlines. It's a
Yeah.
fantastic piece of work, and thank you again so much for the time today.
Yeah, thank you.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.